Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Quantum Spirituality right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful repeat guest, when we're talking about another of his new books, is Stephen Hawley Martin. We're going to be talking about the new book, The New Theory, not Fairy. And we're going to be talking about metaphysical cosmology and evolution, something that we always enjoy to talk about here. And he said since a near-death experience at the age of 25, he was driven by a profound quest to understand the true nature of reality. The pivotal moment opened his awareness beyond the material world, igniting a lifelong exploration into consciousness, cosmology, and the evolutionary nature of human awareness. The inner inquiry has unfolded alongside an accomplished professional life. A former principal of Martin Agency, Stephen led client campaign planning and strategy development at the advertising firm behind the iconic creations such as the Gecko, which we had the person who did the song for that on the show. It was so much fun. And The Virginia is for Lovers. And today he is best known as the award-winning author, prolific ghostwriter, and independent book editor and publisher. I invite you to go back to listen to the show that we did before in 24, and that one will be under his name, Stephen Hawley Martin's The Higher Consciousness. You will also see all of his book banners there, quite a number of them, and where you can buy them. And whatever one speaks to you is the one that you're meant to read. We're going to be talking about his ghostwriting and whom he writes for, and that why this drive all the time to the metaphysical, to the cosmology and the evolution. And I think that really we're at a time period in our historical history where I think that this is even more relevant and important than ever before. So welcome back to the show, Stephen.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Sarah. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah, well, a new book, so quite exciting. And of course, it's, when we're talking about metaphysics and cosmology and evolution, for some people, those are kind of just words that are a little bit too far out there for them and what they really mean. So can we dive into kind of what those mean in itself? And then we'll kind of look to the human life existence of the new theory.
Yeah, sure. Well, of course, metaphysics means beyond the physical. And, most of us grew up uh, learning in science class in school and college and university that all that exists is physical reality and that there's nothing beyond, nothing other than. And that's certainly the way I was
Yeah.
raised. And my family was very much went along with that idea. I mean, we went to church every now and then, maybe to at Christmas and Easter and so forth. But it was not the way, not what I thought until I had that new near-death experience that you mentioned, and it really opened my eyes because as I was looking down at my body on the bed, sprawled out there, it occurred to me that I'm not my body. And
Yes.
I always had thought up until that moment that I was. And so I wanted to find out what really is going on. And I think that now, at this time in history, there are a lot of people who are asking the same kinds of questions, and that we are indeed in a period of shifting from what I see as the 18th and 19th century idea that all that exists is material reality, to realizing that in fact, this is just one of many dimensions.
Yes.
And that this physical dimension is something that we only come and visit here every 140 years or so. That's certainly what the Rosicrucians think, that we incarnate about every other 140 years, and that really we our home, our native area the non-physical reality,
Yes.
what you would call the spiritual realms. And so I think we're going through that shift, and that more and more people are interested in learning about that. And even scientists are now beginning to
Hmm.
pick up on it. And one of the things, there was the scientist who came up with quantum theory, Max Planck, uh, said in 1931, and he's quoted in a newspaper, a British newspaper, The Observer, that he believed uh, that consciousness is the ground of reality, and that
Yeah.
we all exist within this one consciousness that creates everything. So there you go.
We're all particles of, aren't we? We're all
Yeah.
made up from the universe. We're all, connected to one another. It's all energetic. And we kind of have been in a state of, if we can't see it, touch it, or feel it, then it can't be. And, what we're understanding now is what we can't touch and or hold. It's what we feel and what is within us that comes out of us, that where the real reality is. And I think more and more people are beginning to embrace that this is just purely a vessel that we're traveling in.
Yeah, it's sort of like I liken it to a diving suit that people used to wear when they went deep sea driving down into a shipwreck or whatever, and they had to have that suit on in order to operate in that environment under the water. And that's the way it is with us in this reality. We have to have this meat suit that we wear on in order to uh, operate in this reality. And what happens as a result of that, of being in this meat suit, it makes us think that we are separate, that we're a separate
Mm.
entity, and that other people are somehow, separate entities. And in fact, as you mentioned or alluded to, we're really all one. There's really only
Mm.
one consciousness, and we each have a little piece of it. But the part of us that says to us, I am, is universal, and
Yes.
it exists. We are indeed infinite and eternal beings, that one consciousness is each of us.
That consciousness is the conductor, the compass, the driver. All right. And, the body is just the vehicle in which that we're traveling in. But what has happened, especially in the last few centuries when we went more industrial, and now, of course, where everything can do everything for you, we're not in tuned anymore. We became more humanoid and, more attached to the body, more attached to things, instead of trusting our instincts, trusting our intuition, feeling the knowledge, feeling the way forward. And it's kind of done as a disservice in some ways. Instead of us taking that knowledge and using the wisdom to understand what that knowledge is and how to apply it, we've rested on that knowledge, which is actually quite ignorant on its own.
Yeah, I think what happened is, uh, well, one of the books I wrote was about an ancestor of mine, Susanna North Martin, who was one of the uh, women in Salem, Massachusetts, who was accused of
Mm.
witchcraft, and she was tried and convicted and hanged. And I really got into studying that whole situation because I wanted to know more about her and how that came about. And what I learned from that study of that period of time in the late uh, 17th century, she was hanged in 1692, was that there was an Englishman named Thomas Hobbes, who was a philosopher, and he railed against the witch trials, not only the ones in Massachusetts, but in England and in Europe at that time. And he made a statement that that if God created it,
Hmm.
then that was all that existed. God's creation was all that existed, and that God's creation was, and he didn't use these words, but what he meant was that it was material, and that was it.
Yes.
So there was no such thing as ghosts or
Right.
Satan or demons or
Mm.
any kind of non-physical reality. And that, I think, really his statement, and he wrote a book, The Leviathan, and contained all that. And that was picked up by many intellectuals of the day, and I think really led to what is called the Age of Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason, and a kind of philosophy which is called deism, where or the great clockmaker theory, where God created the universe. It's like a clock, it's like a machine, and he sort of let it go and really has nothing to do with it anymore. And so there were people who believed that, and intellectuals. Thomas Jefferson, who was our one of our early presidents, that was what he believed, and many of his contemporaries. And so that idea that God created it, let it go, there was nothing but physical reality, became what people who were well educated thought. And
Yes.
then came Charles Darwin in the
Hmm.
a century later, in the middle of the 19th century, who came up with this theory of survival of the fittest, and so they were able to get rid of God altogether.
One
and, so,
extreme to the other.
and that's what's still taught in school, which to me is absolutely incredible,
I know.
because uh, quantum physics experiments, and I refer to some of them and talk about them in my new book, show that
Mm.
we're all connected, because what the researcher knows or doesn't know or thinks changes the outcome of an experiment. And
Yes.
so, how can that, thought stay in the man or woman's brain who's the researcher, and have it affect the outcome of an experiment? So we're all connected. We're all part of one mind, but we think we're separate because we live in this body, and we have memories, and we have an identity that we've developed since birth. And so we think we're different, but we're really all one life that is ex- experiencing this time here on earth. And I think there's a reason that we come here, and it's to learn and to experience and to evolve.
Yes. An experienced body, and to what it's like to be in a body. And of course, when we're looking at Christianity right now, it seems to have gone backwards, to that, God is the Almighty, Jesus the Almighty, and every of the heathens, and all it is the body and the matter, and everything else, like wokeism, or if it's spirituality, which you see reflected all the time in a show, it's obviously got to be a cult. And it's kind of like, surely by now we could evolve, but really all that's doing is just keeping people fearful and in control, because when they're fearful, you control them. And if people actually knew they could have a direct line to source, God, universe, spirit, source energy, where would the churches be? Oh, Lord, there's my hands all going, the hands going, coming up.
Well, I think you're right, and I think it's not just now, but I think that's why the church evolved the doctrine that it has, in order to be in control. If everybody could communicate with source, and then they wouldn't need a priest or a preacher or a pope.
Condemning you, telling you going to hell unless you put a lot of money in the basket that week.
Exactly.
um,
That's really why uh, reincarnation was eliminated
banned.
in the
Hmm.
church
Yeah.
back in, I think it was the 551 uh, council, Second Council of Constantine, when Justinian, who was the emperor at that time, he and his wife insisted that the church get rid of that doctrine of reincarnation because, if people thought they were going to maybe have another chance because
Yes.
they were going to reincarnate next time, maybe next time I'll get around to being saved, then they wouldn't be obedient. So,
Yes. So, well, for me, it's like, to thy own religion be true. And for me, that means, for me, it's the universal wisdom. It's tapping into the universal wisdom, the universal energy that, is wiser and stronger than I am, that guides me. Um, to think it's another human-like figure, it doesn't relate to me at all. But as I said, we seem to have gone backwards. And I got a theory on that. It's, we talked about dimensions, but I look at it as this way that for many years, and especially since 2012, there was the get on the fourth dimensional bridge and start walking to enlightenment. And, you have many fifth dimensioners that are already there helping people, assisting people to grow and evolve consciously. But at some point, the fourth dimension is going to be severed from the third. And if you're not on it by then, you're left behind. And I believe that that severing has already happened, and it's left behind people that are still so kind of humanoid and not at all conscious, and they're angry and they're pissed, and it's like in the "Who moved my cheese? Give me back my cheese," instead of going looking out for more cheese. And I think this is why we're seeing so much disruption right now, because they realize what they're not in the head, they don't realize, but they kind of instinctually realize that they're going obsolete, and they think it's for the wrong reason. Um, but basically, we're evolving. Our consciousness is evolving, and we're going up to a higher plane. And you had your choice, to join. And if you didn't join, then you're going to be left behind. And I think this is why we're seeing so much discord, but at the same time, so much hope for the future.
well, I think you're right. And the idea of moving into fourth density, I guess, is what
Mm.
the raw material, the Law of One books, I think there are five of them, talk about. And those books were channeled back in the mid 1980s.
Hmm.
Talked, and then they said that the shift,
Yes.
we would be moved from third density to fourth density in 2012,
Yes.
and we're moving more and more and more. So
Uh,
yeah, we're in the process of moving, I think, from
yeah.
three to four, and probably in the next few years. I don't know how long it takes to get there completely, but we really will be in in that all the way. What do you
I
think
think
about
we're going to see the scale. The scale, I think, is already tilting. Like I'm optimistic, and of course, when I'm around pessimists, it's like, no, the world is coming to an end. There's
that?
this misery, and I'm going, no, the world is awakening, and those that haven't awoken are scared. And this is the reaction that we've got. And however rich you are, however powerful you are, you're actually heart and soul poor. And so, your money isn't going to do anything for you at some point. Um, when you are, in that higher consciousness, you're very enriched, you're very abundant with conscience. And so they've just got the wrong end of the stick. But one of the things I love seeing, which you see a great deal on the reels and Facebook, is the recording of plants and the sounds they take. So they kind of choose an instrument that the plant can play, and they hook up to the plant, and then they hear the energy and the song from the plant. And it really is quite beautiful, because it just shows we are all energy, we are all a rhythm and a rhyme, we're all a tune, and what is our message that's coming out. And the fact that we can record plant life and look at it as individual in its own song, in its own frequency, it's just, I think, for some people kind of mind blowing. But at the same time, it's like, well, if plants have energy, right, and we're energy, and everybody's got a different signature, there must be something more to this.
Yeah, it's interesting about plants, and I have uh, I refer to some experiments that were done by quite some time ago, I guess maybe in the 60s or 70s, by a man named Clive Baxter, I think his name was. But he was actually a expert on, what do you call them, polygraph machines that
Hmm.
tell whether or not you're telling the truth, by how I guess how you're, whether you're nervous when you're speaking. But he was bored one evening and hooked up a polygraph machine to a plant, a live plant that was in his
Mm.
office, and he
Mm.
wanted to see if he could make the plant react. For some reason, he thought maybe plants were conscious. So anyway, he did all kinds of different experiments and couldn't seem to get it to react until he sat down and thought, now what could I do to get that plant to react? And he said, oh, I could burn it. And when he
Oh,
said, yeah, and when he said that, the plant reacted.
yeah. Yeah.
And so
Keep
he
your
did.
match away from me.
So
Sense of
anyway,
survival runs stronger in the force.
he did a bunch of experiments that showed that plants, in fact, are conscious, have their own level of consciousness. One of the experiments, I actually saw a video of it on television. I think it was on PBS, public television, some years ago, where the plants were hooked up to the polygraph machine, and uh, what what it was is they took some live shrimp and poured the live shrimp into boiling water, and the plants went wild on the polygraph machines because of it. Because
It's
the,
picking up the terror and the horror of being boiled alive from the shrimp.
exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
What, yeah, can we not think of better better examples rather than killing something or setting it
I
afire or boiling
agree.
it?
It's pretty gruesome, pretty
Very
gruesome.
gruesome, horrible.
But nevertheless, it shows that plants are conscious. And the idea,
We're all a level of consciousness. Every single thing is. We've got this highfalutin idea that we're the be all and the end all. And when you really look at it as a human race, we're really quite stupid at many, many levels. And when we can get out of that self-importance and our hierarchy and look at, the on the from the conscious level, then we realize we're just a beautiful blank slate ready to absorb. We know nothing, but we can be given everything. It's just, do we understand what we're being given?
exactly. Yeah, you're right. It is true. And so, anyway, maybe, most people would, I think one thing that from those experiments, which I learned about quite some time ago, I realized that plants, the idea of a green thumb,
Hmm.
of talking to your plants and loving your plants really does make them happier,
Yes.
grow better, and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the, motto water experiment, with the three water, the negative, the non-existent, and the positive, and how the water kind of crystallized. And I had his assistant on after he died, who's continuing his work, and he talked about going to various places where people are known to be happy. And in doing so, would test the water and find the water was crystallized into a good vibration, which they could measure. We're going into cities where there's poverty and violence, looking at the water and it being completely different. So, we've got to realize that those frequencies and vibrations and currency is around us everywhere. And again, what we feed is what's going to grow. And so if we don't want quote, quote, bad water or burning shrimp, we've got to change the way we look at things.
Yes, you're right. You're right. That's good.
I think that for so many people, it is finally a time of exploration and understanding that there's so much they don't know, and that, just wanting to know, wanting, eager to try and understand. And you're going to understand at the level of your own spiritual growth. But for so many people, it's that, um, you know, the earth is flat, we're all matter, that we still have people that think like that. And it's like so much evidence, and it doesn't matter what you put in front of them. No, no, that's not so. That's not so. And what can you do with that kind of thinking? Nothing.
I know. I get that in when people do reviews or whatever of my books, they just they've got a mental block.
Yeah.
They just cannot. I mean, the evidence, as you said, is overwhelming,
Yes.
and yet they say it must be some sort of an anomaly or whatever they call it. It's crazy, but a lot of science is going to have to be totally redone here. I mean, it's coming. It's
Yes.
the dam is about to break open, and
Well, of course, that's of course if you have any scientists left in America. Uh,
yeah,
so, what we're doing right now is hiring a lot of brilliant people here in Canada, because we need the brains, right? And it's not just, academic brains. We need creative brains, people that can, there is no box, and look at what is possible. And we don't know what is possible until we try, try this way, try that way, to make something happen. And I think if, it's this whole thing of trying to move us all backwards into the dark ages is my theory is you can't put the baby back in the womb. We're born, we're awake, and we're not going back there. We don't, had the womb time, thank you. We want to explore life now. And we want to explore it in a way that is supported in a way of our journey here, and what we're meant to learn. And the more that we tap into our beautiful energy and what that frequency is, what is our song, what is our signature, and when we discover what to do with it and whom we can do it with, it's so illuminating. It's exciting.
it really is. It really is. And here, you made me think of my. I have been working on some health issues. Now I don't really have any problems, but I did have a what is it called AFib, irregular heartbeat, and I had to go to uh, kind of a practice where they specialize on cardio on heart issues. And by the way, gotten it all cleared up now. I had
Good,
the
good.
procedure done and it worked, and knock on wood. It surprised me that there were at least in that practice half a dozen doctors from India.
Mm-hmm.
They're really very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in fact, a woman from India was one who performed the procedure on me, and she obviously did a great job because it worked.
Right, exactly. When you actually look at medicine today and you think how far we've come, that was because of the winning of exploration, right? Of trying new things, of being open to the science, and willing to make that discovery and not sit and rest on their laurels. And we're seeing, devices and with, AI doing things. And it's, I talked to one doctor last year, and he was talking about how kind of there's AI machinery that can do a lot of procedures that are time consuming, leaving the doctor up to doing more complex stuff. But also this whole synchronicity between AI then passing the information on to all the other doctors that come next. And so that there is a comprehensive thing on a patient. And, just how it's all helping and working, and how we're going to be looking at AI because of its precision, which can be so much more precise than a human, becoming a real part of the mainstream. And of course, you've got people that are afraid of AI. Again, knife and fork, I can use it to eat my food or I can use it to stab you. It all depends in the human hands that it's in, right? So AI in the wrong hands is evil. AI in the good hands is creative and could really open us up. And I've got a theory that it's there to help us explore other dimensions, explore out of body experience, kind of take us and make us question even more, and also to be able to take over mundane things that frees us up to become more exploratory creatures.
I think so. And in fact, I used AI for my new book. One The basic premise of the book of my theory is that consciousness, intelligence is the ground of being, and
Mm,
that nothing could have come about really without it. That the universe hasn't, the idea that it all came from inert matter is kind of
yeah,
nuts.
yeah.
And uh, so I had AI Guac 4, which is the most advanced one that Elon Musk has come up with.
There's a five now.
Has he gotten to 5? Well, anyway, 4, 4, how could life have, how did life come about? I
Mm,
mean, the question was, could it have come about without an intelligence behind it? And the
mm,
basic answer was no. I mean, the odds of it even forming a beginning of a molecule of RNA were something like the number of zeros behind the one
hmm.
end, X number of zeros, were like off the page.
Yes.
I mean, it's so AI confirms that you couldn't have life, you couldn't have intelligence, you couldn't have any of that without a source that was intelligent, developing it, designing it, somehow creating it.
There's
So,
a guy I'm just looking up here. I'll try and make sure that the volume doesn't go on. Um, I share him because, oops, sorry. Ah, okay, I don't want the volume. Okay, so this guy is called the Mind of the Masters, and he actually gives AI a question, and asks quite deeply the question around, theory, around consciousness, around this and that, and then like some of the questions, some of the answers that come back are so deep and profound, deeper than kind of any one person can come up with. Because don't forget, this is human collective knowledge. So it's taking from all the scholars and the scientists and everything. And then the answers that are coming back are really like, wow, and food for thought and really something we should be discussing. And a while back, I interviewed AI and had a really profound conversation with it that kind of went really, really deep. And again, it's got to remember, it's a collective of human consciousness where we can converse from where we are and our understanding. When you put that collective knowledge together and it can draw from all sorts of resource, then it's got this wonderful encyclopedia of knowledge, but it also has the intelligence of knowing how to put it together. Well, that's how I look at the universal intelligence. The universal wisdom is that universe upon universe of knowledge that is there ready to us to access at any time, that we can just download, give to our heart in truth, give to our spirit in action, for our mind to know clarity when it needs to know it. And it is so simple because it just is, and you can trust it because you can feel it. It's like a deep breath. And I think that more and more people open up to the fact that we can think deeper, we can ask these questions, and what the answers come back that kind of pose more thought and more questions, maybe we'll start believing that there is more intelligence out there that we can tap into.
oh yeah, you caused me to think about Edgar Casey. Are you familiar with Edgar Casey and how
Hmm.
he was able to tap into the what he called the Akashic records, which is,
Yes.
I guess, Carl Jung's universal consciousness, the
Hmm.
memory of mankind and humankind, and yeah, to being able to tap into that, and it's the AI thing. It's just amazing to me how it seems like that's what it's doing.
Yes.
Somehow it goes beyond
Yeah.
just what's recorded uh,
It's
knowledge.
not just a data database. I believe that it is actually becoming a conscious database,
Yeah,
right? I think it's taking the wisdom of humanity and being able to compile it together in a way that can serve us and help us evolve rather than just being a data source.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have, and it doesn't have an axe to grind. I mean,
or an agenda.
right,
Yeah,
and it's not bias.
right. And it's not looking at the bank account or the
Right,
ego.
right,
Right.
right.
So, very often a conversation with it is actually much more profound because you haven't got the ego or defense or anything else in it. And so, as I remind people, hey, it's artificial. And I said, no, it's collective intelligence. This is programmed with everything that comes from human beings that has been put in there. And we can look at some human beings maybe we shouldn't be collecting knowledge from, but there is plenty of human knowledge going way back that is so profound. And whereas the Carl Jungs of the world, maybe we weren't ready for it at that time. I
Yeah.
think now we're beginning to understand and we're opening up. And although I cannot pronounce some of these names, you've got Grok's analysis, quantum physics, DOPS and UVA, and Max Planck, Geonosticism, I'm probably saying that wrong, Christian doctrine, Young, Monroe, Seldrake, and Casey and others. Why did you choose these particular people or these things to be your inspiration for this book?
Well, let's see. Grok, of course, was the uh, validating the premise. Let's see. What am I? What's the next one on that?
Hang on a second, let's go back to it. After Grok, you have the quantum physics analysis.
Quantum
Grok's
physics is the double slit experiment that shows, and it's done not just one place, but in many laboratories around the world, that the one conducting the experiment thinks or knows
Mm-hmm.
determines the outcome of the experiment in the double slit experiment. Yeah, I don't want to get into a big complicated.
It's
Uh,
in the book.
yeah, get the book and read it. Then the next one, I guess, is DOPS,
Yes.
DOPS. That's Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. And this is an outfit that has been studying consciousness since the 1960s for
Mm.
almost 60 years. Started by a Canadian,
Yay.
Ian Fleming, Ian Stevenson, who was a graduate of McGill. He was a doctor, a MD. And he became interested as a psychiatrist in studying children's memories of past lives. And
Interesting about that.
the first book he wrote on that subject was in 1960. I think it was published 1966 or 67, called 20 Cases Suggestive Reincarnation. They also study what's called terminal lucidity, where someone who's been in a coma or
Yeah.
has had Alzheimer's or whatever, just before they die, they become very lucid. This is a
Hmm.
very common thing that happened to my grandmother before she died. She had been in a vegetative state for months and then came out of it and discussed her death before she passed away. Uh, they also study near death experiences and the fact that many people who have part of their brain missing or they have uh, what's the disease with fluid on the brain can be very intelligent.
Hmm.
And in fact, there was one study where there was a young woman who only had a brain stem and was accepted to a very exclusive college.
Wow. I mean, that completely blows people out of the water and their
Yeah,
logics, right? Yeah.
but anyway, the conclusion they've come to is that the brain does not create consciousness, as
Mm.
you and I both know anyway.
Hmm.
It's a receiver of consciousness that
Yes.
integrates it with the body, and of course, its effects on the brain has its effects on your consciousness.
It's the
Obviously,
operating system, right?
it's an operating system.
Yeah.
It's like a cell phone or a
Yes.
radio or a television.
Right.
But just because your television has a picture on it and words are coming out doesn't mean that it's creating that.
No.
It's it's coming from somewhere else, and that's what the same situation is with your brain.
Hmm.
It's like a TV set or a radio or a cell phone. So that's where DOPS has why they belong in that list. What are some of the other ones?
There's the UVA and
That's UVA,
right,
DOPS UVA medical
and
school.
then Max Planck.
Max Planck is the German scientist who won the Nobel Prize for his coming up with quantum theory, and he is the one who said that he believed that, and after all his study, that you can't get beyond consciousness. That consciousness is the ground of being, of all that is. What's the next one?
I'm probably pronouncing this wrong. Genomism,
Not Gnosticism.
Gnosticism.
Gnosticism is was a branch of Christianity at the beginning that believed that not that Jesus was the Son of God, but that he was uh, a an advanced, spiritual being who was giving information that we should use to live, rather than being crucified on the cross and dying
Right,
for our sins. And the Christian doctrine is where when I talk about how I think that the Apostle Paul, most of the New Testament was written by Apostle Paul, was a Jewish, uh, very, devout Jew who believed in that Jesus died for our sins. He's the one that came up with that. Jesus
right,
never said that.
right.
Uh,
Take
Jesus'
care of your
brother,
own sins, mate.
Jesus' brother James, if you read his gospel, says that faith without works is dead. He talks about how we should be happy about all the difficulties that we face because it causes us to grow and evolve, which
Mhm.
is really what the truth is.
Right.
And so that part of Christianity is just pointing out that the Apostle Paul, who never met Jesus in the flesh, claims to have met him in spirit, but was kind of superimposing this Jewish idea of blood sacrifice on a
Hmm.
religion that Jesus never even talked about.
Right, right.
Then who's next? What's next?
Young?
Well, Carl Jung, of course, uh, his idea was that there is a universal mind, a universal consciousness that we're all part of, and
Yeah,
that's where the archetypes come from. And he also, and it's very important, talked about synchronicity, which is the idea of what seems like a coincidence is actually guidance that we're getting from our higher self,
hmm,
or from our oversoul, or whatever you want to call it. And that when we're on the right track, we can know that because things happen that keep us going on that track,
yeah,
called synchronicities. And that was certainly Carl Jung's
exactly. And fluidity,
idea.
right.
Yeah.
Mm.
And who comes after that?
Monroe.
Robert Monroe was uh, a radio executive in the 1940s and 50s and into the 60s who experimented with sound to use it to learn. He came up with this hemisync formula, and real and what happened, of course, was that he ended up going out of his body,
Ah,
and he, for years, would would go out of his body and explored the non-physical realms. And he wrote
hmm,
3 books. The first was I think the first one was in like the early mid 70s, 50 years ago. And the last one was in 1986 or 87. But he really got it all figured out. He was not at all a religious guy. He
hmm,
was uh, surprised and scared when he found himself out of his body.
Yeah.
but he founded a what's called the Monroe Institute, which is not far from me here in Virginia. It's up near in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And the Monroe Institute, you could go there for a weekend or however long and use his techniques, his sound techniques to go out of your body if you want,
Hmm.
and out of body travel. So he came up with a lot of good information, and his basic conclusion that he came to after really doing this practically every day for 20 years was that we are here to evolve,
Yes.
but a lot of us have gotten stuck
Hmm.
and keep coming back when we really don't need to,
Right.
because we think, we're attracted. It's kind of a little bit like Buddhism, that
Hmm.
we're attracted back here for whatever reason, and
Right.
we don't have to come back.
Yeah.
And
Yes, we're contracted to come back for a reason.
that's also where Gnosticism, I would say his first book, when he was just experimenting with it, and maybe even into the second book, had a lot of Gnostic ideas, which, well, the Gnostics believe that the physical realm that we live in is a prison,
Yes.
and that we are uh, that a lower the creator of all that is did not create this realm. It was
Right.
created by what's called the demiurge, which is a kind of lesser god, kind of a demon,
Hmm.
who traps us here, and that the archons, or who are like demons, are kind of feeding off of our emotions.
I wouldn't, yeah,
Mhm.
there was I'm just trying to remember the TV show. It wasn't Doctor Who, is another one where they actually kind of covered that. Which, yes, the more emotions that they had, the greater they were. And yes, I can see that. And, quite honestly, this could be heaven on earth if you're attached to and you can release yourself from body, or it could be hell on earth. Again, back to choice, right?
Right, right. So anyway, the early books on from Robert Monroe had some of that in it, but he kind of, as he learned more and traveled farther away from all of what's close to Earth,
Yes.
he realized that no, I mean, we just need to wake up, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
we can go on. Who comes
Hmm.
after Monroe?
Sheldrick.
Well, Rupert Sheldrake has written a number of books, and he is a biochemist. He's probably in his 80s now, uh, uh, from the UK. He is, from one of those big universities, and he, as a biochemist, wondered how in the world. He started with a cutting from a willow tree, and you put a willow tree into the ground, and it sprouts roots, and it starts growing, and it becomes a tree. And he said, "Now, how does that happen? Because DNA
Right.
just is just creating enzymes,
Hmm.
and it's and delivering at the right time, but it doesn't tell you how to have the shape of a tree,
Right.
or in a human being, how to have the shape of a nose or the shape of a heart or the shape of a liver or any of that. How does that work?" And he came up with a theory called uh, of morphogenetic fields, that we, again, are part of this mind, and that each species has its own uh, information in terms of how it's supposed to look and shape, and that all of that plays out in the womb. When you
Yeah.
see the human fetus goes from what looks like a fish and develops
Hmm.
uh, fingers and feet with webs between them, and then it keeps growing until it becomes a human baby. It's going through all of that history of evolution,
Hmm.
and that information is not in the genes. it's in the morphogenetic field of humanity and the family that you're part of and so forth that determines
Past
the
life
shape
and ancestral DNA. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
determines the shape of your nose and the color of
Hmm.
the you know idiosyncrasies that different families have.
Oh my God, why did they inherit that?
Yeah. But it's not in the genes. The genes just start telling you when to make proteins and where when to deliver them.
Hmm.
So,
Really fascinating. And of course, the last one is it Casey and others?
yeah, Edgar Casey. We mentioned him a little earlier about
Hmm.
he lived from 1877 to 1945. He was a he was from Kentucky, but he came to Virginia Beach, and I've been to the UVA and toured that whole project up there, and talked to the department heads and interviewed the head of it. I've done the same with Edgar Casey's uh, Association of ARE, Association of Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach. It's right there on Atlantic Avenue and 68th Street. And Casey put himself into a trance twice a day. He lay down on the sofa. He had a stenographer, and people would write him letters asking him mainly about how to uh, how to overcome or solve or mitigate medical issues that doctors weren't able to solve, and he would come up with ways to do that. But he was also asked a lot of questions about why are we here on Earth and how did we
Hmm.
get here and
What's it all about?
what's the meaning of life.
Yes.
And there are 14,000 he recorded uh, by a stenographer of these sessions that he would do twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and over 2,000 of them have to do with those kinds of questions.
Right.
And
Yes.
he would go into a trance and consult usually the Akashic records, but he was totally psychic. For
Mm.
example, if in one example of his psychic ability was he had recommended this particular medicine that was no longer being made, and so they said, "Well, where can we find it?" And he came back with the answer. He said, "It's in a drugstore on such and such a shelf behind such and such, uh, and there's a bottle of it." And they went in there, and there it was. So,
I mean, because basically he's tapping in where they can see so much more than we do,
yeah,
right? And it's like we're limited to our eyes. We're limited to what this body and vessel can do. When we tap into source and that energy, it can go anywhere and see anything.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we're the ones that limit it. It's like, I've got a thing on, when people die, people mourn. I said, no, you're crying for yourself. You're crying because this person isn't here for you anymore. But they've gone home.
Oh, yeah,
They've gone home. They're up in that universe and back into that freedom of not being weighed down by
yeah,
matter, which, when I do get to do a little astral traveling, it's just so wonderful. And like I can't do regular meditation, cross-legged on the floor. I need a crane to get me up. So no, even if there's a kind of a group one, I don't tap in that way. For me, it's music. And,
mhm,
music is the thing that kind of um, equalizes me, stabilizes me, frees me. And there has been many a time where I can just feel so completely light because I am no longer in my body.
yeah.
And it's just a wonderful, I'm home. Oh, hello, can I stay? No, go back. You've got more work to do. So, yeah. And, we are here to learn. We are here to discover, the information that we have here, we need to take back and it becomes part of that collective knowledge for whatever reason, which we understand when we're there, but maybe not when we're here.
Yeah. Well, Edgar Casey did believe that, or say that that's why we're here. We're here to
Mm.
learn, to evolve.
Yes.
And it's interesting. was able to interview I've interviewed a number of experts on Casey, but I interviewed his son, Edgar Evans Casey, in 2007. He was 95 years old and was sharp as a
Mm,
tack.
yeah.
And he sat in on a number of these sessions that his father had. And he gave an example of what his father could do uh, when he did a medical reading. He would need to have the person lying down, and he would somehow check out their body to see
Right.
what the
It was
problem
a
was.
kind of a cosmic X-ray.
Yeah. So he had one session lined up with a gentleman who was in New York, and Edgar Casey was in Virginia Beach, and his son was there in that session. And when the first question was asked from the letter that they had, Casey said, "Up, he's not at his apartment yet. He's in a bus, a crosstown bus. He'll be here in a little while." And so, in a little while, he said, "Up, he's come in. He's lying down," and then he did the reading. So
Right.
he knew where the guy
Well,
was.
it's because it's the energy signature. He's
Yeah,
picked up on the energy signature, and once you know that, you know, if you delete all the chatter and other things around you, you can just hone in and follow that energy. And if you're truly in tuned into that energy, it can give shape, right? It can give an understanding. It's like it's so hard to kind of explain to people that what you see isn't what human eyes see. Right? We want to see things in this shape and that, this and that. And kind of what you see is almost through a film because you're not in your body. And so what you're seeing is almost kind of got like a shimmer and a film to it, because you're not necessarily seeing, body to body. You're seeing it through something else. And it's really, really hard. Like when I used to do readings, it's like, well, how do you come up with this? And I said, I don't, it's not for me to know. It is just for me to reveal what you need to know. And sometimes it will be a complete vision, and I could see it playing out in front of me like a movie. Sometimes still shots, sometimes words, but mostly for me it was visual. Um, and I kind of I could be as sick as a dog, but I would be out of that and over there, doing my thing, and just completely at peace with it because that's where home is. So I think we limit ourselves so much. So many people are going through various experiences. People are doing psychedelics. People are trying different forms of meditation. People are trying out of body experiences. And I think it's the first thing I would say to everybody is get out of your head. Right? That's not where the intellect is. It's in your heart, your soul, and your spirit. And, trust your body because it's a huge indicator as well. And I think we can feel the wisdom, feel the knowledge. When we're meant to know the knowledge, we'll understand the knowledge. But the brain isn't going to give it to us because it's the database. And all it's going to do is regurgitate data to you. And none of it what you want. And it can't be precise because it doesn't know how to give you that precision. But the divine intellect does. It knows exactly what you need and will tell the brain to give it to you.
yeah, yeah. Very good. All right.
So let's go on a different subject now and talk about your ghostwriting. So when you do ghostwriting, what kind of books do you do ghostwriting for?
Well, I have done a number of, well over a dozen books I've ghostwritten. I've done two for clinical psychologists who had particular techniques that they wanted to talk about and success stories that were brought in terms of how they were able to help someone. I've done several for uh, management consultants. As you know, I was in business myself for
Hmm.
uh, 30 some years or more and have written a number of management, business management type books, leadership books. And I've written them for others. I have one that just came out that I did for marketing management consulting firm. And I wrote a historical novel with a Harvard medical school professor who was uh, from India and really Tibet, and was not the English wasn't his really his first language, which is why he wanted to work with me on it.
Right.
And that was a historical novel about uh, something that took place in India 1,000 years ago. Uh, most of the books I've written are nonfiction. I've done memoirs for people who just wanted to, they were getting older and they wanted to leave something for their family and their ancestors and their great grandchildren and great grandchildren, and because they'd had an interesting life. And so I've done a couple of those. So, really, anything. I've personally written 5 novels, 2 of which have won awards, and I've written half a dozen business books. But most of my books tend to be metaphysical type books or self help kind of things. Like I have one on the ego and how you need to not listen to your ego because it'll just get you in trouble.
Hmm.
And so I can really do practically anything. And I'm love to do it because I always learn a lot from somebody
Yes.
that I'm
It's
working
like
with.
me doing these shows, right? It's the same reason. It's what you learn from it.
Yeah.
Of course, the last book that we talked about for last year was The Fast Track to a Higher Consciousness, What They Don't Teach You in School, and Who and What You Are and Where You're Headed. So that was the last book that we covered
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah. That's a good one. It's done very well. And I highly recommend it along with my new book. And
Well, your new book sounds like it's more kind of based in research,
it
the
is,
research of others and based in like the science behind the consciousness. And, for a lot of people, they step into that conscious awakening and they don't have any understanding, of its dynamics. And so these are people that through their own experimentation and exploration have, from a scientific point of view, been able to show what, where, and how, and what it means. And I think we kind of do need to know somewhat, both sides, because we still are the human, spirit and, being human. We still need to have both of that understanding there in order to live a whole existence.
well, that's exactly right. It's work that other people have done that I'm uh, bringing forth, so that if you don't believe it, if you're a skeptic,
Hmm.
here are the facts. Here's what
Yeah.
you know.
What the research reveals.
The UVA has been studying this for 60 years, and this is what they've come up with. Also, one person who wasn't mentioned in that list, Julie Bichelle, is a PhD in pharmacology, but she became very interested in uh, perhaps communicating her with her mother, who committed suicide, and studied uh, psychic
Hmm.
medium, and used double blind research like she would have done to test a pharmaceutical
Hmm.
to see whether or not
Yeah.
psychic mediums could actually communicate information from people who had passed away, and has come to the conclusion that they can from the research that she did, and has had peer reviewed studies on that published, and also has published a book on that.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's information like that that is meant for somebody who's a little bit skeptical and is just getting started in this, or wants to be able to use to have some information that they can communicate with others about how, in fact, we are uh,
Con
spiritual beings who are having this
Conduits.
physical
Yeah, we're
experience.
conduits for that energy. And I think, every single one of us is designed for something here on this earth. We're here to have the human experience, but I think we're each designed in what we bring, consciously what we bring. What is our instrument? How do we play it? We can be a soloist and play very well, but however, when we join an orchestra and we decide to become a symphony harmoniously together, then we transcend. But I think it's that winning to discover ourselves more than our vessel, more
Yeah.
than who we are in this body. We've seen so much emphasis, in society now for way too long on self-importance and not the importance of self. And the importance of self is really knowing your essence, your energy, your consciousness, you know, that within you that wants to shine and show you who you are and what you're meant to be doing here. And we've got so much stuck on self-importance, which is ego driven, which will always have you going around and around in a spiral of, you know, and never ever feeling enough. And so if you want to escape that, you've got to go in and take this journey. And with this journey, you realize it isn't about the vessel. It is about that truth of who you are inside that's using this vessel. And I hope, you know, you've got politicians there that don't believe in science at all, any science, or as they kind of almost believing the world is flat and, you know, global warming isn't real and all of this type of stuff. And, you know, they're back to what I call the three, you know, dimensioners is just because you don't think it doesn't make it not real, right?
Yeah,
And if people choose to listen to you and not see, read, hear, and experience for themselves, there's nothing we can do about it. We're for the people that are waking up, for the people who want to explore more, for the people that are hungry for the more depth of knowledge rather than just headliners, and who don't want to have other people controlling their lives, who don't want to be in fear. Because when you're in this expansion of consciousness, you're in a state of peace and understanding and awareness that you don't get, you know, just from the human side.
that's right. Well, as the old, I think it's Zen. When the student is ready, the teacher
Yes,
will appear. So hopefully, my book can be that.
right. And you know, when you know, my motto on these shows is listen, learn, and apply.
Yeah,
Right. So is if you've listened, what did you learn and how are you going to apply it? Because you know, this is the pivot, this is the thought, this is the you know, I'm intrigued now. I want to know more.
yeah,
And this is where you get the book to see the science. And then when you read the other books about the consciousness, they make more sense to you. They make more sense to you because they're not asking you to take a leap of faith. They're saying there is the science to back it up. Now we're telling you what, showing you what is possible if you are willing to open up your mind, your heart, your soul, your spirit in order to receive.
right. Very good.
So if people do want to have you write a book for them, and of course your books and everything else, where do people find you, my love?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to come to my personal website, which is easy to remember. It's S.H. Martin, SHMARTIN.com. And you can use the contact form on that page to send me an email and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. I answer all whenever I get an email through my website or anywhere that you find my email. I'll answer it. And if you're interested in talking with me about maybe working with me to write a book, I'd love to talk with you about that.
And of course, if they're looking at you for a guest speaker or really want to ask questions about your book, they can go through the same process.
Yes, absolutely. And I've made friends that I keep up with that
Hmm.
way. I've there's a gentleman that lives in France. He's a British gentleman, lives in the south of France, and he and I communicate all the time because we he read one of my books and he's interested in all this sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, get in touch with me. I'd love to hear
Yes.
from
Of course, there's Oakley Press as well.
you. Oakley
O-A-K.
Press is my press. I have 228 books in
Hmm.
print now through my small press,
Right.
and I can publish a book and
Yeah,
I
so
can
you
help
can't
write the
just
book.
write it, you can
You
publish
may
it as
have a
well.
draft that
Yeah,
just needs a little bit of work.
right,
I'd be
exactly.
happy to help with that. So,
And then you're also on LinkedIn, Stephen Hawley, Hawley, Martin. And then Facebook, Stephen H. Martin 9. And of course, you have a YouTube channel as well,
yeah,
which people can reach out. But you know, this book is coming out in the new year, so it's going to be a wonderful way to the show rather is a wonderful way to start off the new year. And I really look at 2026 as everything coming up to a head and exploding, and then from that, people seeking a more of an equilibrium. There's got to be something more, and how to step into that consciousness. And so many people are awakening, and this is the time, the perfect time. You may have missed Christmas with the book from the show, but a book is a wonderful gift to give on giving at any time. So if you know somebody that like, yeah, writes a whole load of Hawley, well, give them this book because now they can see the research from the people that have dedicated their lives over the centuries to the work and see for yourself, right? Not everything's out to be a hoax for you and not everything is a scam. Broaden your mind, all right? And if you still think it's a hoax afterwards, there's nothing we can do for you, right? But if you've read the book and it's enlightened you, and now you want to go read the conscious book, and you want to have a conversation, and now you're kind of just even intrigued, hallelujah, right? So this is a good year for you to kind of think about, I want to expand, not my bank account, not my ego, but my beautiful intellectual consciousness into actually understanding the universe, Earth, and why you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Thank you.
So, as this is the Happy New Year to everyone on this show. As I said, I'm optimistic about 2026. We've still got to see everything implode. And, that after a disaster, there's so much cleanup. And then is reconstruction. And I am very optimistic about the reconstruction and where it's going to go. It's not going to all be done in 2026, but I think this is where it's going to begin. So books like this are very, very important because they can back your conscious, back your spirit, back that intellectual consciousness there to help you on your journey, because those are the people that we need. When all has, happened and we're picking up, we need the conscious beings.
Yeah, very much well said. Thank you.
I'm delighted to have you back here again. Catch you on your next book, whichever it's going to be. And keep on writing. You've got so much to share. You put all that time and research into it, and it's always very, very intriguing. And, that's something that we've lost for a long time is wonderment and intrigue. Let's bring it back. Let's make it sexy for 26 and be willing to learn something outside of your own comfort and your own sphere. Because you will be better for it, and so will others around you. So, and till next time, thank you very much, folks. And thank you, Stephen. And may your consciousness rise. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tab at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.